Okay.
Okay, and then Tim, you'll speak right after Megan, and then I'll take questions. But I think we should go pretty quick.
And we can start whenever you guys are ready.
Get ready?
All right.
Yeah?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Holly Eaton, and I represent House District 15 in the Maine Legislature. I'm from Deer Isle, and I represent a beautiful district made up of coastal and island towns. But before I'm a state representative, I'm a mom, and that's why I'm proud to be here today. I was excited to hear from Shenna and to be part of this conversation, because as I look ahead to the next legislative session, my top priorities are education and childcare. In my district, every town is a minimum receiver. That means our communities are trying to fund growing school budgets with what feels like, and often is, less support from the state. When we hear about 55% from the state funding, we know right away that doesn't include us. And you can see what that looks like. School buildings that need repair, school boards struggling to retain teachers, and students who need more support than we're able to provide. I see it across my district, and I see it in my son's classrooms. That's what's at stake for me. I have 2 boys in our public schools, and they are the reason I do this work. Shenna Bellows understands that investing in education isn't a talking point. It's one of the most important decisions a governor can make. It shapes our communities, our workforce, and our future. I've seen the plan, and I believe in the vision. As a mom, I believe in Shenna. Please join me in welcoming the next governor of Maine, Shenna Bellows.
Woo!
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much. Today we are here to talk about our future. A new deal for Maine's schools and childcare, where every child has access to a quality public education, and teachers don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs to provide for their families, and families have access to childcare they can afford. My story is deeply rooted in Maine. In no other place could someone with a story like mine run for governor. When I was 4 and my sister was 3 and my brother was 2, my parents bought a piece of land in the town of Hancock. We lived in a tent that first summer while my parents dug out an old cellar hole, and then we lived in the basement. We didn't have electricity or indoor plumbing until I was in the 5th grade. And when I started kindergarten in Mrs. Johnson's kindergarten class at Hancock Grammar School, I had a lisp. But with quality, free, school-based speech therapy from Mrs. Lindbergh and help from my teachers, including my 3rd grade teacher, Mrs. Clark, I became the person I am today. There is no question in my mind, but for the quality public education at Hancock Grammar School and Ellsworth High School, I would not be Maine's first female Secretary of State or a Democratic candidate for governor. I've been on a listening tour over the last year. I've traveled to Representative Eaton's district. I've shadowed teachers in the Deer Isle Stonington schools. I've talked to parents, teachers, school board members, and students all over the state. And what I'm hearing is deeply alarming. Young couples are making conscious decisions not to have children, not because they don't want to, but because they can't afford it. Kids are going to school in buildings that are literally falling apart, with active leaks and drafts that make it too cold in January and too hot in June. The first time I heard about teachers using the food pantry to get by, I was incredulous. But then I heard that story time and time again. We pay our teachers so little money that they have to use the food pantries to survive. That's why we need a new deal for Maine schools and childcare. It starts with funding. Budgets are moral documents, and the state is clearly not doing its part. We talk about 55%, but that's an average. All across the state, there are school districts where the state's share falls far short of 55%, pitting property taxpayers against school districts in no-win situations, where schools are forced to close classrooms, cut teachers, or freeze pay, the very opposite of what we need to be doing to best serve our kids. That's why I'm proposing that 55% be the minimum share that the state pays for every school. My plan includes more state budget support for teacher and staff salary increases, school meals, infrastructure, training stipends, school supplies, and the full cost of special education and English language learning. I'm calling for a statewide freeze on property taxes for Maine residents, paid for by doubling the property taxes of out-of-staters who are buying up our property. An estimated more than $500 million increase in revenue. That's how we fund our schools and universal childcare, and we must. We must because in order to recruit and train the next generation of teachers, we must raise teacher pay. All across the state, I've heard from teachers who are juggling 2 or 3 jobs during the school year because their salary doesn't cover their basic needs. How can we expect our teachers to show up for students, or better yet, stay in teaching when they can't survive? We need more teachers in Maine, but how do we attract great teachers if they aren't being paid a living wage? We should pay teachers more. $50,000 should be the floor, not the ceiling, for starting pay for teachers, and we should build in an automatic cost of living increase as well as restore vital retirement benefits and safeguard collective bargaining. We should do everything in our power to recruit good people into teaching, to make teaching a profession that the next generation aspires to. My plan guarantees a state stipend of $10,000 for every teacher who mentors a student teacher in their classroom for the year, as well as travel and training stipends for student teachers so they can focus on learning to teach. Teachers shouldn't be paying for school supplies out of their own pockets. In recent years, collectively, teachers in Maine have been spending more than $5 million annually to outfit their own classrooms. That is wrong, and we shouldn't be fixing the problem with tax credits. The state should be funding supplies for classrooms, including science, art, and shop classrooms so students can learn using bulk sourcing and distribution at the state level. We need to invest in school infrastructure. My plan proposes a statewide bond to build new schools and fix up existing ones all across the state, with investments in energy efficiency and sustainability projects for schools to save money in the long term and create healthier, safer learning environments for every child. Because that's what it's all about. A safe and healthy learning environment for every child where they are empowered to learn and achieve their dreams. Student success shouldn't be tied to zip code or wealth. It's time we have universal pre-K for every 3- and 4-year-old in our state, now. We need to invest in quality literacy so that every child can read at grade level. The state must show up in our commitment to the arts, Maine history including Wabanaki studies, science and math, and trades in every school district, no exceptions. We must protect the civil rights of every child so that they feel safe and welcome at school, no matter who they are or where they come from. And we must prioritize student health. When I was a state senator, I sponsored successful legislation to modernize the school lunch program and fund breakfast after the bell because no child in our state should go hungry. I worked with students in Kennebec County to save their school-based health center from budget cuts. Those kids were right, particularly in rural Maine. School-based health centers are one of the most vital ways Mainers can access healthcare. And in many rural communities, the school is the heart of the community. So my plan proposes a school-based health center in every community, and mental health care is a big part of my plan. Mental health care is health care, and our kids deserve to get the resources they need to be successful. Our kids are struggling. I keep hearing about how one of the biggest challenges students and teachers currently face in their classroom are disruptions when a child is experiencing a mental health crisis. That's why my plan calls for a mental health counselor in every single school in the state. Student success in the classroom depends on what's happening before and after school too. There's one more thing that is bolder and better to prepare and support student learning, something that will support our economy by allowing more parents to go back into the workforce. Today, not only am I introducing a new deal for schools, but also a new deal for Maine for childcare. Because as I've traveled the state from Portland to Presque Isle, I've met with parents who want more kids, but the cost of childcare makes it impossible. And at the same time, childcare providers are working at wages that barely keep pace with fast food joints. As the oldest state in the nation, we must do better. My plan for childcare is universal. No matter who you are, where you live, or how much you earn, Maine children should have access to nurturing, safe education and childcare, and every parent should be able to work and contribute to our communities. Our childcare must be affordable. I'm proposing that childcare be free for most and affordable for all. My new deal for Maine guarantees that no one pays more than 7% of their income on childcare. And we're going to do it by training more childcare providers and paying them wages where they can thrive, not wages where they barely survive. Competitive wages and benefits, including health insurance, are how we recognize the expertise of our children, the people supporting our children through the most rapid phase of their neurological, social, and emotional development. When educators and childcare workers can afford to stay in the field, children benefit from stable relationships and consistent care. Childcare for everyone may look different in every community, and that's okay. Maine is a diverse state with diverse solutions. What works in Caribou may not work in Cape Elizabeth. Leadership in my administration will be focused on local needs, but include leadership at the top. I agree with the Republicans. We need to create a new department, and I'm proposing a new cabinet level position to head a Department of Child and Family Services, something that is long overdue to better care for the needs of families and children in our state. I owe everything in my life to me, to the community that raised me, to the teachers who took me under their wing, to the educators who I convinced to come to my house and talk to my parents about educational opportunities. Every child deserves a future as bright as they can dream. That's why today I propose a new deal for Maine schools and childcare, where every child has access to a quality public education. Teachers are paid more so they don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs to survive, and families have access to the child care they can afford to support every child in our state. Thank you very much.
Woo!
Hello, my name is Megan. I'm a mom of 3, a 9, 11, and a 15-year-old. I live in Gardner. And before I had kids of my own, I worked in childcare. I love working with little ones, and it made me excited about my own family. But when I moved to Gardner from Portland, I thought it would be easy to find a childcare solution that worked for my family, and it was really hard. We got very lucky with an in-home center, but I don't know what we would have done without it. It was a very difficult scenario trying to find somewhere for my child while I worked. Now that I'm the parent, I do need a governor who gets it. My kids deserve schools that are fully funded, with teachers who are paid what they're worth, classrooms that aren't overcrowded, and programs that actually prepare them for the future. And for the parents of younger kids in this state, affordable childcare isn't a luxury. It's what lets families work, stay afloat, and contribute to this community. We need a governor who understands. Maine families are strong, but we shouldn't have to do this alone. We need a governor who will go to bat for our kids in the classroom, in the State House, and everywhere in between. That's why I'm supporting Shenna Bellows. I'm voting for the future my children deserve, and I hope you will too.
Woo!
Thank you.
My name is Timothy Wilson, or Tim Wilson. I'm standing here because the person who's running for office, governor for this state, epitomizes a lot of the things that a group of young people I've worked with for over 33 years, something called Seeds of Peace. When we started out, we began to do summits. And those summits epitomized what students wanted from our leadership in this state. I've had the opportunity to socialize, to work for every governor from Burton Cross to the present governor. And it would be wrong for me to stand here and say to you that that I don't have some fish in this game. Shenna is an amazing human being. In 2017, we had a summit. That summit had kids from all over the state, but it was a culmination of 3 years of work by a group of young people, some who are now lawyers, finishing medical school, teachers, parents. documents now. Some before them, if that reaches back some, and some even now who are a part of Maine. They've been on the phone with me talking about and asking about, could I find what was written in 2017? And I dug back and I found it. The things that were just spoken about are part of the exact written document that was presented to legislators, governor, and at Harvard at the third year law school run by Charles Ogletree, who was the teacher of the Obamas, and on the sidebar was a lawyer for Tupac Shakur. Tree, as we called him, read it, said it's unbelievable these kids came up with it. But everything that was just spoken about is in that document. And guess who had a lot to do with it? That lady right there. She was there with those kids. I sat there and listened to it. I think the hardest thing for me to stand here and say to you is that I'm not here to, first of all, I'm too old to be worrying about it. I'm basically retired now from the world I used to be in for 33 years at CTP. But what I'm trying to say is this. I have been a part of Maine since 1960. I was not born here. I'm the first person of color to teach in a secondary school in 1966, and it wasn't important. My adopted home is Dexter. There are a lot of people who know me for other things. But what I'm trying to say is we need someone like this lady behind me to do the things that are necessary for our young people in this state. If I brought some of the young people and they stood here and they said to you what was said in 2017, in 1998, you would be surprised. All I'm asking for is that people who hear this today think about what our children deserve in this state. And I think the person that just spoke about her children and childcare were just the epitome of where we are right now. We got to do a better job. And the only way to do a better job is to elect Cheney to that position as governor of Maine. Thank you.
Woo!
In making education one of my #1 priorities, because right now all across Maine, teachers are struggling, schools are struggling, kids are struggling. And I believe if we invest in a real 55% from the state for every single school district in the state, if we stop putting the cost of education on the taxpayers at the local level and start taking responsibility at the state level for funding education like we should, and if we invest in school infrastructure, in paying teachers more, in supplying our classrooms, and in infrastructure, we will have a better future for every Maine child. Thank you, and I'm happy to take questions.
Second plan release. Other candidates have released multiple plans and layers. Do you feel like you're playing catch up at all, or do you feel like you're on the right track?
So one of the things that'll make me the best governor for Maine is I'm a great listener. I have traveled all across the state. I was the first candidate to shadow teachers for a whole day in schools. And my plans are grounded in what I'm hearing from the people who know best in the field. So no one person has all the best ideas. The next governor of Maine needs to be an excellent listener. My top 3 priorities are the economy, education, and healthcare. And that's why I'm focusing on a new deal for Maine that lifts up those plans.
Can you talk about the 7%
the 7% number is actually a federal number. So the Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level has long established that if a family is paying 7% for childcare, that is in fact affordable. But the truth is, most families are paying upwards of 10% of their income or far more for childcare. And that's why families in our state are choosing not to have children, because they can't afford it. I talked to a childcare provider in Aroostook County. Moms call her to say, when's your next opening? It is years away. And so they're delaying having children based on the lack of available and affordable health care. And that's why that 7% cap is rooted in data at the federal level. It's not something that we're currently meeting. So I'm calling for universal childcare for all, universal pre-K for our 3 and 4-year-olds, and a dramatic investment in schools paid for by doubling the property taxes of out-of-staters and a fair tax policy.
And you say you want childcare to be free for most, affordable for the others. What's the cap on that? Who are the most that it would be free for?
So in talking to childcare experts across the state, the estimates are between 125% and 150% of poverty. And that's something that certainly we would work through with the legislature. But I think free for most and affordable for all has to be our touchstone.
Do you think there would be like an income, like household income cap of some capacity?
Yes, that's what I was saying with
Okay.
125%.
Oh, 125%. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Great. All right.
Thanks,
everybody.
friends.
Yeah.